Hello, hello. Welcome to Moonlit Reflections number 3. Why your League of Legends goals suck, and why mine did too, and what we're gonna do about it. All right. So I want to give a quick update. This is gonna be 2 seconds. Uh, because I want to get into the meat of the content in these videos. I don't want to. It feels like with the book club type thing, I was putting too much into one thing, if that makes sense. And so we're going to do that separately. But to the point of this actual video, why your goals suck. This is actually quite simple, and it's because they're probably like my goals, which is why I wanted to kind of skip over why your goals actually suck. I wanted to tell my own story and why my story is probably very similar to what a lot of you guys face. So, why my goals sucked. I had the goal to hit Masters, right? Which I ended up hitting. But the thing is it's really awkward because you hit Masters. Let's say your goal is even Diamond, right? At one point, my goal is Diamond. At one point, my goal is to hit Gold. At one point, my goal is to hit Platinum for the first time, right? All these things, what it requires is you end up moving the goalposts over and over and over again. And what I recognized when I hit Masters this time, when I was actually sitting there thinking about it, I can't necessarily remember exactly what I thought after I hit the other ranks, but or only because those were so many years ago. But when I hit Masters, I kind of got stuck for a few months because I needed to give myself time to understand where I was and then have the willingness to shift the goalpost, which is really hard. That's not something that I think is done very easily or very quickly. And so, why do I say this? It's because, like, you hit your goal, then, like, for me, it took me a few months even to just recognize, like, all right, this doesn't actually matter. It's time to start moving towards the next thing I want to do, right? Because the reality of my situation is you hit your rank, right? Your new rank, whatever it might be, whatever your goal is, right? This goal isn't only for League of Legends, right? This can be put into any goals, but what it is you hit it and you're happy when it first starts, but then like you start to think like it's kind of like a grass is always greener on the other side effect, right? The difference between Emerald 1 and Diamond 4 isn't much, right? But it's the prestige or whatever it might be for having that higher rank. And the issue is when you you view Diamond 4, it's like, oh yeah, this is so great. And then you get there, and it's like, well, what do we do now? We didn't really plan for this, right? Maybe we did. Maybe our goal was a lot longer term. But then when you hit that longer term goal, even if you're an Emerald 1 and your goal's Masters, right? When you get there, now what? Right? And that's kind of the idea that I want to get across in this video. My idea of why these goals actually suck. And to do that, we got to break it down into two games, all right? We got the Finite game and the Infinite game. And I'm going to do a quick explanation of these before we get too much further, because I think that these concepts are incredibly important as far as goal setting goes. Because what is the Finite game? The Finite game is defined rules and defined players, right? Imagine basketball, right? This might be a bit of a American point of view, but to break it down, right? Basketball, you have 5 people on the court versus another 5 people on the court, right? And the game ends when there's no more time, right? There's a defined rules. You can't travel the ball. You can't just pick it up and run around with it, right? You have to be dribbling the ball, bouncing it, right? And you don't get to say when the buzzer beeps for the last time, right? The game's out of time. You don't get to say, oh, well, if we have if we had an extra 3 minutes, we could have won that, right? That's not how it works. Because you lost if you're saying that. Whereas you can't have a 6th player in like a professional basketball game because there's the rules behind it, right? You aren't just randomly the NBA games aren't randomly handshaking, being like, you know what, it's gonna be a 6v6 tonight. It sounds fun, right? That's not happening. It's because it's a finite game where the comparison to it is the infinite game, right? No defined rules, no defined players. So what does that mean? It's very abstract is the word that I like to use for it. It is the idea of, what's a infinite game? Let's use the solo queue ladder in League of Legends, right? The solo queue ladder. No one is being held there. There are no real defined rules of the solo queue ladder. Except, like, you win a game and you gain a little bit of elo, and you lose a game and you lose a little bit of elo, right? There's no defined players. People can come and go as they please. It doesn't matter when people play, right? Just the idea of a ranked ladder in general is it's literally just the defined, you win or you lose and then you go up or down, right? Everything else, there's nothing holding anyone there, right? This is a pretty weak comparison, I think. But I think it does get the point across, right? Like you don't have a defined length of time. You have a defined length of time for seasons, for example, right? But the actual idea of the ladder, right, of the MMR system, just yeah, it's all improvement based, right? I guess improvement is more the infinite game, more than the actual ladder. And I think that we're getting to my point a little bit earlier than I would like to, but it's obviously, depending on what you're trying to do, the finite game versus the infinite game, you basically choose which one you want to play, right? Which we break it down. What kind of game is League of Legends? I think it's both in different ways, right? Each individual game of League of Legends is finite. Your Nexus doesn't blow up, and then you get to say, oh, well, we we want another Nexus. We could win if we had one more Nexus to defend, right? You don't choose that, right? Just as I mentioned before, the season is finite, right? There's a finite amount of time. In January, the season starts, and then in December, the season's going to end, and everyone will reset, right? There's a defined start and end point to it. Granted, it's a very long finite game, but it's a finite game in itself. Whereas improvement in League of Legends, which is a big aspect of the game, is an infinite game. There's no start or end point to improvement. You could improve a lot at League of Legends before you've even played it. If you have played, so if you take two people and one of them has played a computer game before and the other one hasn't, that person that has started has already started improving at League of Legends, whether they knew it or not. Just being comfortable with a mouse and keyboard is improving at the game, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily directly related to it. You could read strategy and stuff. You don't necessarily have to play the game. VOD viewing is a way to improve when you aren't actually playing, right? Which is, I think, a pretty big thing. Because we need to understand not only what game we want to play, but also which game we can kind of match that to, right? Matching our mindset, matching our goals, orienting them, right? Which is why I want to talk about the golden carrot, right? The golden carrot is the thing that damns everyone, in my eyes. Because what is the golden carrot? The golden carrot it's that masters, right? It's that diamond rank. It's the rank, essentially. It's holding something ahead of you for motivation, right? It's chasing after it. I write here, it's easy to hold. And what does that mean? By being easy to hold, it's very easy to want a golden carrot, right? And I think that some people's carrot is so far in the future, it's crazy, right? Some people's golden carrot is the world championship, which is fine. But then, if that person wins the world championship, now what? It could be that you're So the way that I view it is that you take the infinite game of improving at League of Legends and you make it a finite game essentially. And then what you have to do is after you hit that golden carrot, after you hit that ranked goal, right? Because you don't just randomly hit, you don't go from Emerald to Masters. You improve to do that, right? And so, or even like Silver to Platinum, right? You don't randomly hit that. You improve, you get better, right? If you are randomly hitting it, it's probably because you did something to play the game more, right? You have some other issue, right? You get essentially what it is you end up being able to show an improved version of yourself on the Rift, which might be playing more games, it might be fixing your mental, might just be straight up just better gameplay, right? But what it is every single time you win or you go through a finite game, you have to restructure yourself for the next finite game, right? And not everyone is going to be different. Climbing from gold to platinum and then assuming that the climb is going to be the exact same going from platinum to diamond is a bit silly. You're going to have to learn different skills. You're going to have to use different tactics, right? You're going to have to improve at the game in a different way than you did previously because the players are different, the elo's different, the way that people play is different, right? And what it is because we structured it in a way where we wanted to hit platinum, we're going to be in for a bit of a shock, I think, because I don't believe that you're actually looking at the right way to improve. And what is the right way to improve? Let's remove that golden carrot, all right? And then let's break down and understand what is the infinite game, what is the finite game, and let's make sure that we focus on the infinite game, right? I wrote in the last slide, I wrote what, how, why for the golden carrot. And I inverted it to why, how, what, right? Because it changes depending on how you view it, what you're actually trying to do. Because starting with why, I, for reference, I got a lot of the idea for this topic from a few Simon Sinek books that I've written. Simon Sinek, amazing guy. He has a TED Talk out there that talks pretty much about this. What I'm doing is I'm trying to show how it could be applied to League of Legends specifically. He has the book Start with Why, which is where the why concept comes from. He has a book called The Infinite Game, which is pretty obvious. But what it is so let's make sure that we understand why we have to start with why as opposed to starting with what. All right? Because what it is the rank in the game, right? That's ultimately, it would be pretty hard to justify us playing League of Legends or any game if there wasn't anything in it for us, right? Because we play because we want to win. You can't just sit there and lose 1,000 games in a row and be very happy, unless if you're probably, I don't know, you'd have to be a 1 in a million person to be able to do that, right? And let's not play for those 1 in a million people. Let's play for the average person. I'm not that, right? I'm gonna be almost damn sure that you aren't that either. And so by starting with why, you're able to establish why are we doing this to begin with? Or begin this, right? Because even then, what could be, or how, you could say winning the game could be classified as a what, right? Like, what do we want to do? We want to win, right? Or why we do something. It could be, I'm a competitive person, right? That's not a what, that's a why. In my eyes, right? That's the way that I've thought about this. So we establish that we're a competitive person. And because it's not, how am I going to word this? it really just comes down to why you play the game. Because if you don't, let's say you aren't a competitive person, but you want to climb, your climb is going to be a lot harder. Maybe if you're a casual player and you want to go from silver to platinum, you need to establish why you play the game, figure out is this even feasible for me, or maybe even reorientate why you're playing the game, right? Maybe you could play for fun or casually in normals, but then when it comes to ranked, you got to really put your knee pads on, be ready to brawl a little bit, right? And so then you get to how you're going to go about this, right? How am I going to show that I'm a competitive person, right? And that might be climbing the ladder. That might be beating other players, right? Which then funnels into that what? Which is after I've established that I'm a competitive person and I understand how I want to go about stuff, right? I want to show that I'm competitive by winning, right? Then you get to say, all right, well, at the end of the tunnel, you get this rank. Whereas if we then kind of go backwards a little bit, when we start with what, it's like, oh, we want this rank. And that's very surface level. It's like, how do we get this rank? By winning. And it's like, well, how do you win? Right? Like, sure, we want to win. You win by killing the Nexus, right? You get this rank. The rank is a symptom of the season, which we establish as a finite game. So before, it's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, is what it is, right? Because we have to be able to make a lot of these decisions and orientate our goals in a way where we're already focused on two levels of the wrong thing, essentially. And we have to brush past all of that nonsense before we get to the idea of why we're doing it. And that is assuming that we ever even think about why we're doing it. Imagine how long you could be doing things without understanding why you're doing them. Or maybe it's because you've created a habit, right? That's what a lot of people do, I think. A lot of people come home after their 9 to 5, they play a few ranked League of Legends games, and it's like they want to get the next rank. Have they established necessarily how to actually go about that? Or why they're doing it in the first place? Maybe they don't even care. Maybe they aren't a competitive person. Maybe they don't care about improving at League of Legends very much, which is perfectly fine. I'm not trying to say that you need to want to improve at League of Legends, right? I don't think it's for everyone. But what it is, and what I think that everyone has to do, is they need to establish why they're playing the game to begin with, right? Why are you putting yourself through this amount of stress and this amount of time that you've put in and all the pressure if we aren't even getting anywhere, right? Or it's not even that you could be getting somewhere, right? And you could be happy about it, but at one point you're going to cap out, right? It's kind of the idea behind talent, right? There's going to be innate talent. And the thing is talent will cap out. You don't get to where Faker is in League of Legends through talent. You get there through hard work, right? There's an intersection where talent will meet work, right? And what'll happen is if you aren't used to putting in the work by the time your talent caps out, or if you're focused on the wrong things, what's going to happen is that's when you're going to start slowing down. That's when you're going to start burning out. And because you haven't really established why you're doing things, it's likely to blow up in your face. That's happened to me before, right? I had a pretty high level of talent when I first started playing the game. Like, I'm not going to say I was super amazing, right? But I managed to get to low diamond relatively quickly in like 2.5 years, maybe. And the thing is that's great and all. But what happened is is my talent ran out. I wasn't used to the work that I had to put in, and I just sat there for years. And it's only once I started to, not even then, that made me incredibly toxic. I had to break myself down a little bit before I could even build myself back up. Right? It's not going to be linear, is what I'm getting at. And what'll happen is if someone is less talented than the talented person, but they understand how to put in the work, they are going to get further. It's because when you put in the work, whether you like it or not, if you're sitting there reviewing your VODs and you aren't really focused on rank, right? You're just focused on getting better, you're playing the infinite game. And that game is going to win in the long run. Sure. This let's say another guy started the same time as me, right? I got to diamond in 2.5 years, and they got to like gold in 2.5 years, right? Which gold is still pretty good. It's still well over half the player base, I think, or it used to be. I don't know what it is now, but if they understand that they have to put in the work sooner, right? They are going to surpass me, especially when I just sat there and waffled in low diamond for 2.5, 3 more years after that, right? They probably passed me up. I'm not going to lie. If they were working constantly, they're probably higher elo than I am right now, especially if they've been able to put in the work the entire time consistently. Which is why I think it's really, really, really important to orientate your goals to do that. Right? Let's stop with the ranked goal shenanigans, right? We could want to hit a rank, but let's make damn sure that we aren't hitting the rank because we want it, right? We could be happy that we hit a rank. That it's like a benchmark, right? We could be happy that we were able to run 3 miles when we were practicing running. It's the idea that you're practicing for what comes next. You aren't practicing for something, right? Because when you are practicing for something, you're going to take breaks. You're going to slow down, right? It's not going to be linear. You're going to have bumps. You might burn out, right? If you're just doing something because you're just practicing for whatever's next, right? Whenever that might happen, then I think that you're going to have a lot better of a time, right? And I think that is all my thoughts on this, honestly. So what am I doing now? How have I fixed my goals? Because I hit Masters this year, my goals were fucked. To put it plainly. Because after I hit it, I sat there for a while. It's like, okay, whatever, right? I did it. It was very hard to motivate myself for the next golden carrot because that's what I was doing. I was chasing golden carrot after golden carrot after golden carrot. Whereas I'm orientating myself differently right now. I'm going to try it out. I think it's correct. For me, at least. Granted, I don't know if this is how everyone's brain works. There's no like defined psychology behind this. But what I'd recommend for you, if you're sitting there, if you want to hit a rank for whatever reason, so here's the thing. If you want to hit a rank, if you want to hit diamond and you're like platinum right now, going for diamond, having that as your goal is honestly fine. You could make it into a finite game, but it's fine with the understanding that you're going to quit at that point. Because here's the thing. I want to hit Grandmaster now that I've hit Master, but I know I'm probably not going to quit when I hit Grandmaster. So why would I set myself the goal to hit Grandmaster instead of the goal, which I currently have, is to feel at the end of every game that I've tried my best to win. I've tried to make the game as hard on my enemies as possible to win for them, right? And to keep myself composed and intentional as I play. Which is, once again, I think it's a lot of strong signs as to how the goal setting could actually go. Because, as I mentioned before, that goal, it doesn't stop when I hit Grandmaster. That goal stops when I'm not interested in playing League anymore. It keeps me out of a cycle where I feel that I haven't achieved what I wanted to because I'm achieving what I want to in every single game. Every single time I turn on my computer and play League of Legends, I either achieve my goal or I don't. And then I could work on how to achieve my goal better, which is either getting better at the game, right? Keeping my head on straight, keeping my mental in check, right? Whereas if I feel that addiction could start with a lot of these goals. If you're constantly going after golden carrot, I can see I know I could see myself getting into a really helpless cycle is what it is. We get ourselves into a cycle and it's like, okay, we're in this cycle, what are we going to do now? And it's because we never actually established why we're doing something, then we would never be able to break out of it, right? And I don't feel that a lot of people that have a ranked goal as their primary motivator have actually established why they're doing it. Granted, it could be, once again, the intention to quit as soon as you hit this goal. In which case, why are you even playing if your intention is to quit to play the goal? I don't see it. I personally don't see it. Only because this is a thing that we do for fun, right? There's very, very few resumes being made off of a League of Legends rank. And the issue is if your resume is being made off your League of Legends rank, then you probably need to keep continuing to improve after that. Which, I don't know. I'd be curious how people orientate their goals. Because this is my idea where I'll call myself out for this. I think that me setting a ranked goal, like gold when I had it, like platinum when I had it, like diamond when I had that goal, right? Like masters when I had that goal, I look back and I think that they're all pretty stupid goals. I think I could have improved a lot faster if I had never established those goals. And soon, we'll see if my current goal makes sense. I just want to run with it for a while. I'm going to see how it works. And I'm going to be honest, anyone that watches this video, I urge you to look at your goals that you have and kind of make an understanding of, are they in line with the game you want to play? Do you want to play the finite game? Do you want to play the game of seasons that reset every year? Or do you want to play the infinite game? Because a lot of the time, I think a lot of people are going to want to play the infinite game. Which is why I'm leading you with a quote. All right? We're 28 minutes in. I've got the little OBS. I got the recording. I know where we're at. The greatest victory is that which requires no battle by Sun Tzu. If you don't know who he wrote The Art of War. He was a Chinese military general from literally thousands of years ago at this point. And I thought that this was a great quote, only because it's from The Art of War. I've been reading it. It's part of the book club type thing, which I guess I'll give a quick shout out for. Check out if you are interested in continuing in reading the books. I'm going to be putting all my thoughts in the Discord. There will be a book club role that you could select to get access to the channels if you're curious. If you aren't, then good. You aren't going to ever have to hear about it again. What I am going to do in the future, though, is I'm going to make a video specifically dedicated to the books I read. Something like, I read The Art of War, and this is how it made me better at League of Legends, right? Some clickbait garbage like that. But regardless, this, I think, actually, or I took it as a way to look at goal setting and League of Legends. So let's look at it through a League of Legends thing, right? Let's take an example from a game, right? If you are playing a game of League of Legends and you want to get a Baron, the best way to get a Baron is to draw the enemy team away from it so that you could get it for free. And what will happen is if they try to contest a 2v4 or something, it's not even a fight. Your team's going to win. Right? Generally. Obviously, there's specific circumstances, but let's not talk about those right now because that hurts my analogy and that'll hurt my feelings. But what'll happen is is you put yourself in a situation where you get to win without fighting, which is exactly what this is, right? Put yourself in a situation if you're a jungler to invade enemy camps when they aren't contested, right? Put yourself right. It's the reason why in lane you poke someone when they're vulnerable. When they are CSing, that's when you use your ability. That's when you use your Diana Q. That's when you use your Syndra Q. That's when you get your damage. And it's because there is no battle if they're CSing, right? It's just 100% you and 0% them. And so if we change this to orienting goals, right? I feel that playing in the infinite game isn't as much of a battle because what it is I guess it's defining who we're fighting, right? Because in the finite game, we are fighting someone else, but in the infinite game, we're fighting ourselves. We're challenging ourselves completely, right? And if you could win when you're challenging yourself, that's you aren't really battling anything, right? I don't think you can really battle yourself. You could test yourself, you could learn about yourself, right? You can improve yourself. There are external things that you have to battle, right? If you're trying to lose weight, maybe battling the craving for ice cream or something, right? I know I've been there. But what it is it's a matter of picking the battle that you're playing, right? If I'm trying to improve at League of Legends, there's another guy there that's improving. I don't care how he's improving. I have to work on me. I'm not battling him. I'm battling myself. I'll battle him in the finite game, not in the infinite game. I'll battle him when I find him on the Rift. That's the way that I see it. And I hope that to some of you guys, I have convinced you to look at things in a different light if you do have a ranked goal of some kind. Let's make sure that our goals align with what we're trying to do. And with that, I'll see everyone next week. Thanks for tuning in.